What's going on, Javi Lobby? It's your boy Javier with the Javier Show. Make sure you say it twice. All right, y'all. Today I got a special guest, somebody I've known for a little while now, and we've had plenty of conversations, and I never got a chance to get him on the show. And now is that time, and we're gonna talk about fake news, and we're gonna discuss a little bit here and there about the news in general, media in general, and left versus right, and we're gonna get into all of the good stuff. And I hope that y'all enjoy it. So, without further ado, let's get our guest Brent Lee into the Javier Show right now.
One in a million to one villain. Too hot to be in the kitchen. I'll end up melting the ceiling.
What's going on, Brent Lee?
Hey, how's it going?
It's all good, brother. So, welcome to the Javier Show. Just wanted you to get a chance to introduce yourself to the people watching and tell them a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what it is that you do.
Right on. Yeah, so my name's Brent Lee. I do a show called the Unapologetics Panel Stream. I also do a podcast version that's just called Unapologetics. Um, I was homeschooled when I was growing up, was heavily indoctrinated, was never allowed to talk to anybody that had a different viewpoint than mine, or than my family wanted me to have. I was very bubbled in,
Yeah.
and I just had issues growing up and stuff within that, because when you try to leave, you can't really function outside, and you know what I mean. It's almost like if you grew up what are those folks called, the group of people, that the religious
like
people that,
Quakers or
yes,
Quakers.
yeah. Oh no, it's like Quakers, and then there's the ones that don't use any electricity and stuff.
Yeah. You're talking about the
I can't.
Amish.
Amish, thank you. Yeah, it's almost like because they let them leave, but
Yeah,
a lot of
yeah.
them, they leave and they don't know what to do. So of course they come back, because they're like, everything was fucking weird out there, man. I don't know, and that's like how it was for me.
Yeah.
But I think once Trump started running, and I was a conservative Republican conspiracy theorist, like all this stuff. And I think once Trump started running, that's when I was just kind of like, what? Wait, why is everybody like liking this person?
So
And
you
I was,
were a conservative conspiracy theorist type of dude, and then Trump came, and that's what turned you away.
yeah, well, that's what made me start asking questions, because I was like,
Yeah.
wait a second. I was like, I don't even know what a Republican is. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I wasn't really involved with politics and everything.
Yeah.
So once Trump started coming around, I was like, I don't think this guy's a real Republican. I don't think he's, and then I looked up like what being a Republican is, and I'm like, oh no, he kind of fits the bill. And I was like, shit. And I was like, well, why am I a Republican? Because this sounds like it's not what I believe. And then I just was like, well, because I'm a Christian. Well, why am I a Christian? And then just kind of went from there. The
Really?
dominoes
So
fell.
are you saying that your deconversion or your whole shift in your mindset happened not too long ago? This was around 2016 or something around there?
Yeah, 2015 when he was doing his run. And
Oh wow.
everybody was kind of deciding how they felt about it, and I was like, the Christians are not going to go for this guy. And then I went to talk to my family, and it just was so weird, because they're all just like, oh no, and my mom would never go for somebody like that, and she's like, had all the talking points, all the and I'm just like, wow, okay,
Wait,
all
wait,
right.
let me understand something though. This is the thing that I was always weirded out about. People always brought up like Christianity, saying how could they support Donald Trump, him being Donald Trump. But the same question I always wondered is, how could Christians support Democrats as well? I mean, Democrats are literally the party that supports abortion. So I
Right.
mean, I get that the people on that side don't see abortion as horrific as the people who disagree with abortion. But why would anybody who's a Christian who's against abortion ever think about voting for a Democrat? I don't see why they would do
Right.
such a
Well,
thing.
it's odd too, because the abortion thing specifically, like that wasn't even a bipartisan issue up until about the 80s. Like before the 80s, you had Democrats that were pro-life, and you had Republicans that were pro-choice. It was just sort of all mixed in, right? And
Yeah.
then the church kind of did this campaign to make it a wedge issue and really like ram it through, and it really did work, and divide right on that line, the
Yeah.
party line. But
Yeah.
yeah, it's
I remember the
interesting.
Democrats were like safe, legal, and rare. And
Mhm.
now we have more abortions. I think we killed. I think we have more abortions than babies born in certain states. Like, it, I think like New York specifically. I could be wrong, but I think there are certain states that actually have more abortions than actual kids being born.
Oh man,
Um,
we'd have to.
y-
I look at. I mean, New York it is crazy. Like I'll give you that because it's a huge city. You know, there's
yeah,
just so many people, so many hospitals, all
yeah.
crammed
A
into a
lot could have
little area.
changed. We got the pandemic going on, so a lot could have changed in the last 2 years. But last time I checked that stat, that's what I saw. But
Really? Oh wow. Okay,
yeah, yeah,
I did
yeah.
not know
Yeah,
that.
but
I'd have to look at it.
somebody, yeah, fact check me. Somebody fact check me. Definitely put it in the comment section. If I'm wrong, I'll be wrong. But so you wanted to specifically talk about fake news, and basically, we were talking a little bit before we got started on the broadcast, and you said something about every side thinks that the other side is lying more than than their side is lying.
Right.
So
Yeah.
kind of break that down and explain like in detail what exactly you mean by that.
Well, I mean, like, just in critical thinking, like, and logic and whatnot, like we have to recognize our own biases, and that's kind of a chore. Like, it's tough for even like me, like when I'm looking at information, if I see something that agrees with my particular worldview, I'm gonna think it's more likely to be true just because I'd like it to be true, you
Yeah.
know. So it takes like that extra step. Well, hold on, I don't know that it's true. How do I figure out if this is true or not? And you have to take that extra step. Um, and everybody has that. Everybody has an implicit bias, according to their in group.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, and the weird thing is, like, the media used to be where it was like actually fair and balanced. You know what I mean? Like it was allowed. Like it was a law. Like it was called the fair news doctrine,
Yeah.
and they were they had it where if you did cover something dishonestly you'd get fined, and then by the time Ronald Reagan came in he did away with that, and since then you can kind of see the erosion and see how the two polar opposites have gotten farther and farther divided,
Yeah.
and I feel like, and this we can this is what we can sort of discuss is, when it comes to conservative, I don't want to straw man, so please, correct me if I'm wrong on anything. But as far as like conservative is the way I understand it, I call them like back in the Spose days. You know what I mean?
Mm.
Because everybody was supposed to do something. Like that's how it was. Like uh, the what is it? Gay people are supposed to not exist, so you better not let me know you exist. Women are supposed to be in the kitchen, supposed to be doing that. They're not supposed to be doing comedy and stuff like you know what I mean? They're
I,
supposed to stay in this box. you know? And the
um,
farther back you go, the more intense that becomes, right? So, and the more adhered to it was, the
yeah.
farther back, you go, like the 60s. And then about the 60s, I think it was like when the Beatles came out and they literally called the Beatles the four horsemen of the apocalypse because all the kids stopped listening to their parents, and that kind of became this new
Yeah.
trend. Because before that, Leave It to Beaver, man, he listened to his parents. And
Yeah.
but
Yeah. That's interesting. That's a very interesting analysis. I would say, with mostly the most simplified way that I put conservatism, the best way that I've been able to simplify it has been I am about conserving those things which we know have been tried and tested, which works. I'm not necessarily trying to conserve every shape, form, or fashion of a society. I don't think conservatives have ever stood for something like that because who the hell would be conservative? We know that society is going to progress as technology advances, as we grow as a country and the world becomes a global stage. We know things are going to change. Any conservative who's trying to hold a position of never changing anything, I think they're irrational or need to be locked up in a nut house. I mean,
right.
let's be fair. But do you use the word supposed or supposed? And I can
Yeah.
there are people like that, right? I wouldn't say it's a conservative thing. I would think that conservatives are more prone to that, if that makes sense. Um, but it's funny because I would also use that when it comes to liberals or people on the left as well. But it's just a different take on it. The whole progressive movement that we have to be progressing. I think there were many strides made in history where the people wanted change, the hippie movement. There was a lot going on where people was like demanding change for the government, demanding more freedom and more rights, and the civil rights movement, things of that sort. And now liberals look back at that and say we're supposed to be doing those things, even though they're fighting certain battles. I feel that doesn't necessarily need to be fought, and you find yourself in this endless loop of we're supposed to be changing, we're supposed to be progressing, we're supposed to, and not always. Sometimes you won. Sometimes we're in a good place, and you don't have to keep trying to push forward on certain issues. But some things, of course, and I think we're lost to that. I think that we live in a generation where a lot of people feel like they missed the great civil rights movement or something like that, and they have to try to compensate for that, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
Like if I was only around back then, man, I'd be perfect.
Yeah,
I'd be
yeah.
out there in the street, man. Everybody'd be with me. But
Mhm.
now I'm just annoying everybody, and it's like I don't like
Exactly.
it in this time.
Yeah, exactly. And here's the thing about the media. To get back to necessarily the media, yes, many of us are biased. Um, I try to not to. I don't think many of us see ourselves as biased, but I don't. I try not to be as biased as I possibly can be. Um, to be fair, I just don't care enough. I really don't. Like I'm a nihilist. Like not overall, nothing really matters to me. So I'm more concerned with having great conversations, seeing where it goes and what I can learn. Of course, there are going to be some biases built into the system, but when it comes to the media, there's two type of listeners. There are one person who's unrealistic when they listen to the media or the news. If you're going to the news to get an objective, like all you're getting is truth, you're in the wrong place. You, you cannot get that from no human being. People will remember the way something happened in the story totally different. And it's not their fault. It's just their brain has already put their own little spin on it, or you know what I mean. So
Yeah.
yeah, and those are the people that go crazy. Those are the people that just like they're lying to us, and we have to like destroy the media. It's like
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. They take it
yeah,
a little bit far that everybody's lying
like they
and
can't
stuff.
believe themselves. Like, how is this happening? And I get that some things are overtly just BS, and you got to call it out. But the other type of person is, I'm going to the media or the news to get a general sense of kind of what's going on in the country. I'm not there to get absolute facts. I'm going there to kind of see what the tone is. I need to know about this coronavirus. I need to know about foreign relations with governments. So I need to get a general sense of where things are going, and then I have to decide for myself like what's the most important issues for me to pay attention to and to follow up on. And if that's the type of person you are, I really don't see all the hype about fake news. What are your thoughts on this? Do you think I'm spot on this, or maybe you can add something to it, take away from something?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah,
because as far and I think you're definitely right in the sense of like, don't go there looking for absolute truth. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Take everything with a grain of salt. And you kind of got the thing that sucks too is how fast it is. Everything's so fast, and a lot of times you gotta wait. You gotta wait for the fact checkers to get there. You gotta collect all this evidence and stuff. That takes time, and then by that time we're already on to like the seventh thing in the row. Like
oh
so
yeah,
but so I try to like wait, and I'm like try to keep track of how often I think a thing is accurate, and then wait a couple of months and be like, I told you, see,
yeah,
I marked
definitely,
that down on my that's the truth list, and that's not the truth list, you know.
yeah, yeah,
But I try to watch both. Like I watch OAN and I watch Fox News, I'll watch Newsmax and a lot of YouTubers as well, like right wing, like Tim Pool and folks like that. Because
yeah.
and then of course I watch like left leaning media. My favorite is like NPR and BBC. I feel like they've been the most accurate that I've looked at.
Yeah.
Because BBC kind of has to because they didn't repeal their fair news doctrine like we did. So
Oh yeah.
they have laws, so you can so you can actually look at how they report about our media and get a more accurate read from another country looking at our country from the outside because they have to. They're not allowed See, and every so often, like they'll get it wrong because they're relying on our news sources,
Yeah.
and they're like, and then they end up getting in trouble. They're like, "Fuck, man, their news said it," and they're like, "They're America, okay? They're stupid, all right? They
Yeah.
just say anything in news, okay?"
Yeah.
You know?
See, I think that the most important thing is I don't think people really care that they're not getting the truth when they go to news. I think what people really care the most about is, are the people in the news supporting blatantly certain values or certain political sides over the other? That's where people get really, really upset about. It's like, okay, we don't expect you to get it all right, but you're clearly shaping this in a form that where it best suits a certain narrative or a certain ideology over the other ideology, right?
Right.
And here's the thing. The question I have is, if Tucker Carlson went on his show and decided to say, you know what, everybody, I was 100% wrong about everything I've ever said. And there's something to this liberalism, to this progressive agenda. And I just want to take the time to tell you that that's the place that we should be. And that's where I'm heading. I'm going to go be sure. I'm just going to support all the Democrats. If he just went on his show and did that, right? You ask yourself, what would happen? Like,
He'd get mauled, like,
exactly.
on the way to his car,
Right.
he'd get attacked 7 times.
So it's like who really is the problem? Is it really the news, or is it the people watching the certain news and expecting a certain narrative from the people that they're watching? It's like
Right.
there's no wiggle room. It's just like if Don Lemon decided that he wanted to become a full-fledged Republican tomorrow and that abortion was off the table, and like people would lose their minds.
Right.
So it's
I mean,
like
we've seen it with Dave Rubin. I mean, he's a pretty good example. Did you see him play? He was on TYT. Holy, that's probably the most progressive you can get if that's
yeah.
the news you're looking at. Just before that would be like Majority Report. But yeah, and he went from that to going far the other way, and now I think he's even starting to say that he doesn't want to be gay anymore. Like that's the thing he can do. You know?
Yeah. That's always been okay. I follow Dave Rubin. I didn't know who Dave Rubin was when he was a liberal. I only
I didn't
knew
either.
Dave
Yeah.
Rubin as he called himself a classical liberal. He never really said, "Oh, I'm a conservative" or anything like that. At least to my knowledge.
Yeah.
And I was always like, okay, well, he's clearly taking the hard line that I didn't leave my side. My side left me, basically, which is fair, okay. And then he started with the Jordan Peterson thing, and they started going traveling, doing this. And now he started like, I'm no longer an atheist. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's
And
just
I'm just sitting here and I'm trying to listen because I'm always trying to listen to people's reasons on why they changed the position that they changed, right?
right.
And his explanation on why he's no longer atheist just made no sense to me. And then it made me question. It
What
made me
what did he say? I don't remember specifically what he said.
He was
Uh,
basically saying that after traveling with Jordan Peterson for so long and hearing him explain the Bible stories and explain like what religion was psychologically, he was like, I could no longer really truly believe. Like I could no longer call myself an atheist anymore. Now I'm paraphrasing. I'm not doing him exact
sure.
justice.
Right.
Um,
But it
but
was like hearing the framing of the which that is something Jordan Peterson's known for is the what is it, the metaphysical substrate or whatever.
yeah.
And the
Which
Bible is like
which baffles this is the type of stuff that baffles my mind, right? Like you find somebody that you agree with on so many different things that are very, very intelligent, and then you find those things that you just can't get with. Like it's just like you're not making any sense to me. That's fascinating to me because it's like, okay, I don't want to dismiss this person right out because I don't want my bias to be a part of it. What I do with Jordan Peterson and people like Sam Harris, like how I was a Trump supporter and Sam Harris hated Trump guts.
oh yeah.
Yeah, what I try to do is I try to genuinely listen to hear what these people are trying to say and try to really understand it. I'm like, okay, why is it that you make so much sense all over the place, but here I can't get with you? Am I too dumb to understand what you're saying here? But like, also, I'm not too dumb to understand the other stuff that you're saying. So it's like, have you just completely like lost it at this point? And that's why I feel when I listen to Jordan Peterson, it's like, yo, dude is very intelligent, but when it comes to the whole religion stuff, I'm like, I've listened to so many Jordan Peterson conversations over and over because I'm really interested in trying to get what he's saying. And for the
Right.
life of me, I always walk away like, no, like
I feel like once it gets to the religion portion of his talks and stuff, it's like you said, like he does have a pretty good head on his shoulders as far as like philosophy and psychology and things like that goes, right? But like when he gets to religion, I feel like the words just stop making like the sentences or the words make sense, but the sentences don't. You know
yeah,
what I mean? 'Cause he's just
yeah.
piling all these weird words on top of
And
each other. I'm
it's
like,
killing me, man. It kills me so bad because I truly like I don't want to. I know there are Christians out there probably watching this show who's like, "Oh, you just don't want to believe because you just don't, you don't want to follow God." Like I have tried everything I possibly can to understand what Jordan Peterson is saying, and I don't consider myself to be the smartest dude in the world, but I'm also not too dumb to understand what he's saying because I understand everything else he says.
right.
And it's like all I hear is like you can everything that he says about religion, you can do that with anything. I can take that with Spider-Man comic book and start saying, well, what this archetype actually represents and what it's supposed to mean psychologically. You can do that with everything. That says nothing about the truth of said thing. And I think that was Sam Harris's point when they had their debate. And I just think it's a whole bunch of goobly like word
Gobbledygook and
salads.
balderdash.
Yeah, it's a bunch of word salads, and it sounds smart and it sounds like intelligent to say it, but when you really think about it, it's like, no, I'm not buying what you're selling.
Right. Yeah. And like I said, like the once you get to that point, it almost sounds like a word generator. I'm serious, man. Like,
Yeah.
because I said, have you seen the one he did? It was Jordan Peterson against Matt Dillahunty. It
Oh
was,
yeah, I saw that. Oh,
yeah,
Matt Dillon. Yeah.
that was so, that was so funny. Because they kind of got off on the tangent of, oh, but drugs can make you have a spiritual experience. And he's just like, really? That's because he was like, there's no evidence for God. And he's like, but people take drugs and have spiritual experiences. That's a check in evidence for my thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're
Yeah.
like, no, it's not. That's not a brain that's not functioning, man. Like, what are you
Yeah.
talking about?
And I think that's when Jordan Peterson was using the example. He was saying that you're not really an atheist because you if you were truly an atheist, you would behave a certain way and you would act a certain way. And that's more like, and Matt Dillahunty got upset about it. I remember that being a part of the conversation. He's done that before in like other conversations, saying that if you were truly an atheist, this is how you would behave or believe. And
That pisses me off when people do that. Because I'm just like, how the fuck do you know? You're not an atheist. How the fuck would you know what we would or would not do
yeah,
based upon,
yeah.
but
But it's I know we're getting off a little
oh, that's
off
all right.
subject, but yeah. But it's so fascinating to me about this is because it go back to the whole bias thing. But it's like I kind of get what Jordan Peterson is trying to say, but yet I think for him, for all his due diligence of trying to be intellectual or being intellectual, I think he misses some things in his analysis of atheism. I think atheism has done a disservice to itself because a lot of atheists are on a mission to prove to other religions or other people that they can be moral.
Hmm.
I don't believe in objective morality. I don't think an atheist has anything to stand on. That's I really do believe the Christians are right when they say, "Well, where did you get your morals from?"
Hmm.
Well, I don't get my morals from anywhere. Morals are created. We decide what we consider to be right and wrong, and that's how we organize our society. Those who do agree survive. Those who don't. I mean, that's as far as it goes with me.
Hmm.
And then Jordan Peterson says, "Well, if you really are atheist, you would be a nihilist. You would nothing would matter. You wouldn't want to do anything." I'm like, well, I am a nihilist. I agree that if there is no God and there is no overarching, you know, being in the world that dictates meaning or purpose, then everything is ultimately meaningless. I even believe that if there is a God, ultimately things are meaningless, in my opinion.
Because you're gonna die one day, and that,
Like then
and
what?
that's it. And
Yeah,
then
you go
the
to heaven, you worship him forever. What's the point of that? What's the meaning in that?
right.
You
Yeah,
know?
that sounds terrible. Honestly, going to heaven to worship, like to be singing all the time.
Yeah.
You can't masturbate forever, man. Like eternity would even just something enjoyable like masturbation would get really old
Yeah,
after eternity.
unless he altered you in such a way that you wouldn't know the difference. And that's no longer you anyway. It wouldn't matter anyway. So
Exactly.
yeah, and Jordan Peterson said, "Yeah, I'm a nihilist. I accept the nihilism. There is no overall meaning to life. If I die today versus if I died 60 years ago, ultimately, in the grand scheme of things in the universe, it doesn't really matter. I agree with that. But
Yeah.
the whole idea that I would behave differently based on that,
Right.
I don't see how he comes to that conclusion because I can justify why I behave the way that I do. You know
Yeah, the consequences are still there. Like, I still
exactly,
would like to have a pleasurable life,
yeah,
and if I'm locked up, that's not a
exactly,
pleasurable life. Yeah.
exactly.
And I
In
would
some
say too
sense,
that it's,
yeah,
I'm sorry, it's just that it's evolution. We evolved to be a social species. We evolved to have mirror neurons. So if we see a guy get kicked in the nuts on the TV, we're like, "Ow," and that's all. And that's like empathy. You feel empathy for people that because of that function of your brain and the fact
yeah,
that we're communal beings who grow, raise in groups. That's how we've
pretty
always
much,
been.
yeah.
But
It's
yeah,
inherent. It's inherent. Like it's the most human thing to do.
yeah,
And I mean, are you not human? I mean, I just don't see how they come to any other conclusion. But with that, to me, it's simple. But like I said, I'm open to being wrong, and I like Jordan Peterson. I like people who disagree with Jordan Peterson. Like I like Sam Harris, and they disagree on a wide variety of things. So I don't
same,
think it's a bias that I have. I think that I'm more concerned like, does this make sense to me? And
right.
lately, I've been wondering, like, for the Christians out there who say, well, you don't believe because you don't want to believe or whatever. I'm starting to really believe myself. Like people who buy the apologist arguments of like the cosmicology. I don't even know
Oh,
how to pronounce
yeah,
it right now.
the Kalam cosmological
Yeah,
argument.
Kalam. Yeah, people
Yeah,
who buy into that stuff and they think it sounds so intelligent, so smart. I'm starting to either believe one or two things. Either I'm too dumb to understand what it is they're saying. I have to be because it's not intentional. I'm not choosing to just like, oh, that makes so much sense, but I gotta pretend like I don't agree with it because for the sake of keeping atheism alive, like atheism is my god or something. No, like I must be too dumb to understand what they're getting. I really do believe that. Either I'm too dumb or it just doesn't make any sense. And I'm
yeah.
open. I'm open to believe that I'm too dumb. I would never say that I know that I must be right on something, but
Yeah. Well, I think
unlikely.
it's the way it's framed, like already is wrong. Like, because they're like everything that wait, what is it? Everything that begins to exist. We'll just go with the Kalam version, because they updated the Kalam version. After the cosmological version, just the cosmological argument is
Yeah.
everything that exists had a cause for its existence, and then they were like, okay, but what caused your God? And they're like, oh shit, okay, everything that begins to exist has a and it's like, okay, good way to get around that one.
But
But
there's no way to get around it. It's no way because for the life of me, there's only one thing that we know exists that began to exist. It's only one thing, and that's the universe. Everything we see in the universe is a part of the universe. Matter
right,
can neither be created nor destroyed. So everything that you see now was here at the beginning of the Big Bang.
right.
All we
And
do is put
before,
labels on it.
I
Yeah,
mean,
and
and
before.
because and because that's the thing. They're like, they're trying to say it was in not there was a time when there was non-existence, no time existence. They were stuck in 0 seconds until all of a sudden things started moving forward into 1 second, 2 second, and that's when the Big Bang. No, 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 no. There wasn't non-existence of everything. There was the universe was there in some form, but we don't have any way to investigate what form the
Exactly.
universe was in.
Exactly. But it was
So
there.
it's
Yeah.
but yeah, no, I don't think that we ever like rocks don't give birth to baby rocks, planets don't give birth to baby planets. Like there are things that we have no evidence that it began to exist
Yeah,
other
but we
than the
just
Big Bang.
we're so busy. We're so invested in what we believe in our brains. But this everything in my room right now, everything in my studio right now is made up of the same stuff, matter. And it was
Right.
all here when when the Big Bang happened. It was all here. We
Yeah.
just shaped it and formed it as something different and called it. We labeled it something different. But to the grand scheme of the universe, it's all matter. It doesn't
Yeah.
distinguish between this is the light or this is the tree. Like it's all the same stuff. And
Yeah.
they just think that these things begin to exist. Oh, we now have a chair. No, we have matter. We're going to call it a chair because we shape that matter differently.
Right.
So even then, the argument doesn't hold up. And but
Yeah,
I
no.
don't know how we got here.
I don't. It's an interesting concept, though, but because it's just like our brains don't want to do the wait, but things always have because everything we understand about our existence is temporal. We come into existence, we go out of existence, right? But that's us. That's not rocks.
Yeah,
We don't have any good reason to think that rocks came into existence from non-existence. You know what I mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
No, you're right, though. We're off,
yeah. But
off.
to get back to the whole news and the media thing, because um, you consider yourself to be on the left,
Yeah,
for
just
the most
somewhere.
part.
There's a broad spectrum. I'd say that I'm not as far to the left as some, but I'm definitely not where the Democrats are in the middle of the road as far as
Okay.
politicians go. So I'm more progressive than the politicians like Biden and shit. But I would say I'm not as progressive. I'm not going to be screenshotting people and putting up their, hey, they said a thing. Everybody cancel, get rid of this dude.
Oh, so you're a moderate leftist.
Yeah. Okay. Sure.
So to be, maybe this is a point of disagreement we can find ourselves in. When you say progressive, what exactly do you mean?
I think like progressive is just recognizing almost like recognizing what all those supposed were, what people have always been expected to do throughout time, right? And how that's been oppressive, and then just trying to do what you can to sort of fight against that oppression or even assumption that people should are better at being what they believe they're supposed to be rather than who they are, which is an individual. And that can take many forms. You can talk about the gay community, things like the poor, poor communities. They don't get a lot of representation. The black communities, stuff like that. So I would say that's the more the focus when it comes to being a progressive. But I guess it's also in because the government, it's like progressive as far as like their way of tackling all those issues using politics, right, and using legislation to
So
tackle all those.
let me try to clear this. Let me try to get a better understanding because I hear what you're saying, but also I don't feel like I'm getting a definition. Like,
Yeah.
right, you're giving me more of a description of like what progressives do. But like, how do you define progressive? Like what is it? What is the
Hmm.
progressive philosophy? Like, is there principles of being a progressive?
I mean, I would say like don't judge a book by its cover. That's a big one. Don't like try to recognize biases that we have and recognize that certain groups have had a significant amount of power, and having that power has allowed them to garnish even more power, you know, throughout this time. So, it's recognizing that those powers exist and then supporting legislation that would, take away a bit of that power and give it back to more of the people.
Okay, so by that definition,
I don't know if that's I'm doing
yeah,
my best here. That's
yeah,
why I
yeah,
say
yeah.
I'm on the left. I don't,
And look, it's not fair to you, right? And I'm gonna be honest with you. I've asked so many progressives exactly the same question, and I never really get like a specific definition of like what a progressive is, right? And I'm not saying that progressive can't mean different things to different people, but there's no if I wanted to look at progressive philosophy, there's no book I can find. Like I can't. Oh well, let's look up what the principles of progressiveness is. Also, the thing that always bothered me about the progressive label is it implies that those people who don't consider themselves progressive are against progress.
Right. Right.
And it's one of those things I feel that is it's a cheat word. It's one of those things that it's like if you don't agree with me, you must be against progress, and we're gonna call ourselves progressives. That way, you feel bad for not being one.
Right. Well, it's almost like what you said. When you were talking about a conservative is basically using methods that have been tried and tested and that we know function, right? And using those methods. So I think they're like a lot of times they would take that definition and be like, yeah, and so progressives is trying things that haven't been tried yet. you know, let's let's implement stuff that because honestly, when it comes to progressive politics a lot of the legislation or just not legislation because the legislation is just baby steps, right? Like it's almost just obvious if you're on the left you'd want this legislation to go through. But when it comes to the progressives, there's so many progressives that are like, I don't know if the word's like ideologues, but like they have these perfect societies, right? That they got in their mind. And they're like, okay, money doesn't exist anymore. All right. No money. Yeah, get rid of that shit. And here's how the society's gonna work. We're gonna use shells instead of money to just say that we made a deal. Not that you know it has currency, but we're just gonna use a shell to say, and it's like you just design this perfect society in your head, but it's completely hypothetical. You know,
Mhm.
we've never really seen a communist or true, you know, socialist
But
country
here's the
as
other thing. I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
no, you're good.
here's the other thing that really gets me is progressive implies that we know what the hell progress even is. Like, what the hell is progress, man? Like, progress to what? Like, is there a perfect state that we all know exists that we've yet to get there, but we're trying to get there? Progress to what? Based on whose definition? It's so subjective.
It is. I mean, it is quite subjective. Like you gotta, I think, yeah. I mean, that's pretty much what it is trying to get to as much equality and as much, you know, as humanly possible. I think everybody recognizes that it's probably not going to be perfect and it's going to be a lot of bumps over the way, but that's our goal, right? The goal is like
That would be
equality,
horrible. That's like
better.
heaven, just like the heaven that you.
Oh,
If
yeah.
we got to a place where everybody was equal in society, talk about ready to burn down a city. It's like, give me something like exciting, something that challenges me or that I can rise above. Humans are built that way. I
Yeah.
I get that. This is one of the issues that I had when I was looking into the whole progressive, conservative, liberal ideologies and all of these different ideologies. This is one of the biggest things that I was like, I could not be this because I think logically, philosophically, it really has it really makes no sense in my opinion, right? And I get that people take on the progressive word. I think most people who call themselves progressives do it because hell, who doesn't want to be progressive? Like, sounds like a pretty good thing to be here,
Yeah, I
right?
want to stay regressive. That's what I want to do. I want
Right?
to go
Like,
backwards.
said no one ever, right?
By the
Even
time I die, I'm a caveman, dude. Like,
right? Even conservatives wouldn't call themselves regressive. Like, I'd rather
right.
stay here than go backwards, right? So
Exactly.
yeah, it's one of those things that I could never really wrap my head around philosophically. And then I started looking into conservative philosophy and things of that sort. And there were things that really spelled itself out for me. And look, I'm not claiming that every conservative, if not most conservatives, are not like philosophically like sound when it comes to their conservatism. I don't think most people are like looking into the whole presuppositions or understanding why we believe what we believe or support what we support. I don't think most people do that. I think most people are like, I agree with these issues, or my mom and dad was a Republican or conservative, and I get that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I just take more of an analytical approach to most things in life, just like with atheism and Christianity and things of that sort. So when it came to politics, I did the same thing. And conservatism seemed like a more sound foundation of like, what are my limited principles? Why do I believe these things? And do they make sense? And if these things no longer make sense logically in the world that we live in, I'll do away with them. There's no reason to
Right.
hold on to something that is proven is not best for what we have going on right now. But I
Right.
still believe in like traditional like nuclear families. I believe in I believe in the institution of marriage. Um, I'm not necessarily for abortions. I would consider myself pro-life, but I'm not for the government banning it.
Okay.
So there are things that I can explain why I support them. Now, if people disagree with me, that's great. We can have a disagreement. But I have a hard time disagreeing with people who don't even have any. Like, if I ask you to point out why do you support these certain positions, and you just say it feels like the right thing to do, or I'm like, well, what are we really arguing here? You
Right.
know? Uh,
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of people do go off of what feels right, you know, because I mean that, and I feel like that a lot of times that's the thing. It's like you got certain people that vote for their own well-being, and then you have people that recognize that their well-being's fine, but like other people that they see suffering, their well-being is important, and you know, I'm fine, but like you know, I see other people, and so my I would vote for legislation that would recognize that those people exist and are suffering and could use a little bit of support, but
which makes sense, right? But this is the thing that really killed me when I hear like liberals that be like, you're voting against like your best interest, or you're voting against helping other people, right? Or something like that.
yeah.
They get so high and mighty about it. And I'm like, cool, but like, you do know that, just like we talked about human nature earlier, you do know that most humans have a vested interest in taking care of themselves and their families first. They have
Yes.
a natural innate bias to take care of themselves first and to put themselves before anybody else. So why are you mad at humans being human?
Right.
That makes no logical sense either.
Yeah, no, that is true. I think and again, like, it's almost like we go with that critical thinking, and it's like you got to stop with that immediate I feel this way, like, immediately I feel like this is right, and go, hold on, let me back up. Maybe my thinking's flawed. Maybe maybe there's a logical fallacy of some sort. Like, and that's really hard to get people to do. It just is, especially when you like what you're saying, when it comes to like your family being safe and stuff like that. And the dude on the news is saying your kids aren't safe now because the left did this thing, you know what I mean? And they're just like, oh fuck, I gotta protect my kids, so I'm gonna, you know what I mean? So it is. It seems like it's leverage, like it can be used as leverage, and I think it does either way, because on the left that it still gets used as leverage, because we have families. It's not like we're all just a bunch of fucking gay couples that are married. We have kids and stuff. We just don't. We just won't. Tell everybody that we need to stay together, in a marriage and stuff if it's not working.
Yeah. I get that, and I think that's more of a religious side of like the right. And look, I'm a minority like in this whole conservative thing, so I am not claiming to be the rule. I'm the exception to the rule, so that's fair game. And I think that's what makes it so good about being in the position that I'm in. I can put myself in a position to understand why people see each other the same way. I don't, like I say, I don't have a dog in this fight. Like, I came to my own conservative philosophy and things on my own, but at the same time, if you can prove to have a superior way of seeing the world based on logic and reason, hell, I'll jump ship like it's nobody's business, because like, who wants to be wrong? Like, I want to be as right as I possibly can. But I want to discuss some other things as far as like Black conservatives in the conservative movement, like Candace Owens and things of that sort. And I want to get a little more into like Jordan Peterson and Sam Harris and some of their ideas like free will and stuff like that, if you're open to talk about it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. And we're gonna do that in the Patreon section. So those people who are Patreon supporters at patreon.com/the Javier or if you join the memberships of the channel, you will get access to this video extended version. So, Brent, please tell everybody before we get out of here and go into the Patreon section again where they can find you and support you.
You can follow me on Facebook. My name's Brent Lee on Facebook, and if the show on YouTube is called Unapologetics, spelled with an X, panel stream. Then on all the podcast players, you can listen to Left at the Valley. There's also a YouTube version of that show, which is youtube.com/Left at the Valley. And so check it out. Or patreon.com/Unapologetics, spelled with an X, or /LATV for Left at the Valley.
There it is, y'all. Go find and support my boy Brent Lee. As you can see, very bright dude and very entertaining, and love to have a good conversation with him. Now, go check us out at Patreon. Don't go anywhere, Brent. We're going to the Patreon section. We're finna get this thing started. To the rest of y'all, I'll see y'all next time. Peace and glory, everybody. Be peaceful and be great. I'm out.
1 in a million to 1 billion. Too hot to be in the kitchen. I'll end up melting the ceiling.